You didn't tell me I
Okay.
recorded.
Yeah. Watch your language, Holly. Welcome, everybody. My name's Rachel. I'm the volunteer coordinator for long-term care and senior services. Thank you for joining our monthly education. Today is on responsive behaviors, and today I have a very important person to me. She was a huge role model to me, kind of shaped me into my career and where I am today. This is Holly.
Oh my
Holly
God.
is oh my God. Holly is the team lead RN for geriatric mental health. So she works exclusively with the county and works with residents with responsive behaviors. Holly's gonna touch base on what a responsive behavior is, what it might look like, and how we can support the resident. Go ahead, Holly, all yours.
Hi, everyone. I do see some familiar faces. And so Rachel had said that I am the RN team lead for the long-term care sector of the geriatric mental health sector in the North Simcoe Muskoka Seniors Geriatric Services. So, you know, if you can remember all that, there'll be a test at the end. And Rachel used to work with our team, so we were very sad to see her leave, but you guys are in good hands with having Rachel as your lead. But what we need to highlight also is that I go to all the homes. So it's not just the county homes. We go to all the long-term care homes in the area. So I go to the 4 homes in Aurelia. And then there's an equal person to me in Collingwood, in Huntsville, in Barrie. There's a couple. So we support all the long-term care homes. The retirement homes are supported by a community team that does similar work. So Rachel had asked if I would speak with you guys about responsive behaviors. And I thought what I would do is just if anyone can put in the chat, so if you're not comfortable talking, throw it in the chat, just what you think a responsive behavior is, or what you've seen on the floor, or what your experience is, maybe with a loved one or maybe with a resident encounter, just so that I can then guide my discussion from there. We do have a document to share after we talk about what a responsive behavior is and what it looks like. And then we'll talk about how we're going to work through that process when a resident is expressing themselves. So
you can also unmute yourself. So at the top right, I guess, there's a little mic. Hit that. You can unmute if you're not able to type or whatever, you can unmute yourself too. Feel free.
So maybe Rachel and Crystal could start typing to give people some ideas to get the chat rolling. Mia's already had enough of me and she's out of here. Sorry when I have to go. It was lovely seeing you all. So some responsive behaviors we might see are yelling, swearing. Now, that being said, sometimes swearing is actually part of people's language, so we have to really sort that out. Hitting, yeah. Oh, that's Rachel. Good job, Rachel. Emotional outbursts, yeah. Crying, confusion, hallucinations, illusions, delusions. Sometimes it might be just wandering, hoarding, rummaging. Often a reaction to a situation where the person cannot find another way to express themselves. Exactly.
Nailed it.
So I think we're getting the idea that a lot of things that we see with our cognitively impaired residents are likely in response to either we talk about physical needs, so hunger, thirst, pain, having to use the washroom, having an incontinent experience, or we think about the emotional need to feel love, need to feel important. Those are just as important as our physical. So when we have a resident who is expressing themselves, and lack of filters is a very good one, Marilyn, I see that one. So those are our residents who lack the insight. So they don't have any insight into how they're treating others around them. They might invade other people's personal space. And then the residents who just shout out whatever they want at times. They strike out. That's because they don't have another way of communicating at times what their actual need is or what has triggered that need. And it's absolutely brain damage. And some people, when we talk dementia or we talk cognitive impairment, we have to remember that their brains aren't functioning and synapsing the way that yours or mine does. So they might be trying to express themselves and they have no language left, so they can't speak, but they maybe can understand. So how frustrating could that be as a resident or as a person? Or think of yourself when you know what you want to say, but you can't form the words, and you understand what everyone's saying around you, but you have no way of confirming that you understand with those folks around you. So there's so many layers and complexity, and I can go down all kinds of different rabbit holes. But what I really want you to understand as volunteers,
thank you,
is that it can be a very complex situation, and we as staff sometimes fail in responding to a behavior. So our feelings of nervousness that you might get in dealing with a resident who's expressing themselves, staff feel that sometimes too. Or you weren't successful, that's okay, because we're not always successful either, because sometimes it's trial and error, and what I did one day might not work the next day. So you need to have like a big toolbox of different strategies. There's sort of a guideline that we're going to give you, but it's not easy. And for volunteers, I would recommend, like, if you're in a situation where you don't feel safe or you're not able to figure it out, the staff are there, right? Staff generally might have another little way of working around or figuring out something that they know a resident always says no, but they mean yes. So stuff like that, always talk with your staff and get to know the resident. And I can't express enough to ask some little things like, what did the resident like? What's a strategy that you might use? Don't be afraid to ask those questions, because I'm really just going to give you a guideline, but treating the residents is very individualized at the same time, right? So I'm going to get sorry, Rachel. I was going to say April, like I don't even know who April is. That's my aphasia. So Rachel, if you can just put up the responding to anxious or escalating behavior that I sent you. So this document, oh, the other one. Yep. So this document was developed, we called this a placemat. So you'll see at the top corner, North Simcoe Muskoka Specialized Geriatric Services. So that's who I work for, and that's a big umbrella in the North Simcoe Muskoka region that covers all of our different services. And there is a website, nsmsgs.ca. Maybe I'll throw that in the sgs.ca. That website has so much information if you're trying to even just help out your own loved one. So this placemat, we called it, really just guides you through a situation. So all the homes have what we call a code white policy. So when a resident is becoming anxious or aggressive, usually we call a code white when a resident's becoming aggressive and throwing tables or hitting another resident and we can't separate. Like when the safety of others is a concern, we would call a code white. So it's probably good as a volunteer to ask what the code white policy is, just so you know. And you can always call help. Like if you're in a situation that you found yourself cornered in the back, make sure you call help. But I would also give you very good advice to never put yourself between an exit. So if you're in a situation, make sure you always know that there's an exit. Sometimes residents can escalate so quickly that you don't really get time to figure it all out. I would think that in a volunteer situation where you're not really doing care, a lot of times care can trigger the response. So, you're sitting reading or something. Generally, I don't think you would see a code white situation, but always good to know that there's a code white policy that, I don't know, Rachel, if you review it with the volunteers or if that's a part of the orientation process, but.
A little bit. We don't touch base a lot, just because the volunteer wouldn't necessarily be involved. They might be involved with redirecting other residents away from the scenario. But other than that, they wouldn't get directly involved with the code white process. But definitely there for support.
One. Would they just be like, code white?
Yeah.
Yeah. I need help. Like, use your voice.
Yeah.
Okay, so at the top of our chart here, we've got the person is extremely anxious or is having some escalating behavior. So they might start to talk faster. There might be like residents are like, I don't like that. I want you to stop. That's a really good indication that you should stop. So we have a strategy we use called stop and go. So you'll see the stop sign. So stop what you're doing and to figure out what's going on and then reevaluate whether you can continue what you're doing or whether the resident just needs to be left to their own devices to settle. A lot of times we'll say doing is okay. Doing nothing is having a plan with some of these escalating behaviors. So is the person still anxious after you've given them a little bit of time? Are they continuing to escalate? So if they are, we're going to ensure the safety of others. So Rachel mentioned that we might have to remove others from a very toxic situation. And then if that's not effective, we would, for you guys, it says, look at the care plan strategies here, but I would just make sure that staff are aware that somebody's escalating for you. And then on the other side of things, if the person's able to resume the activity, then we would continue on. But what our goal with stopping is to reduce that anxiety. If you think about a time where somebody gets into your personal space and you're able to step back and provide yourself the space and reduce your anxiety because you don't want that person too close, especially in these COVID times now. Our personal space became 6 feet for 2 years. If somebody gets too close to you, you're able to take some control and step back. Sometimes our residents aren't able to do that. So we just ask that you stop whatever you're doing with the resident at the time of escalation. And that will hopefully provide some decreased anxiety for the resident. Are there any questions so far? I feel like I'm rambling. Is it preferred to say less to the person? Yes, Marilyn, I would say that less is more at this point, especially if a resident isn't understanding. Sometimes just telling a resident, no, stop, don't, you can't, all those negative terms can escalate a resident. So reassuring a resident that they're safe and just gently telling them they're safe, you're here to help them, or I'm going to go get you some help if you need to leave the situation. But too many words, absolutely. Too many people talking. You just want one person, very short and very calming in this sort of situation. Like, I hear you. I understand you're upset. I'm going to give you time. I'm here to keep you safe. Very reassuring, comforting words is what they would need in this time. Crystal learned from one of our volunteers a better strategy for one of our residents. That's amazing. Do you want to share, Crystal, or you just not want to?
Sure. So I popped into Tuck Shop last week and we had a resident that was upset about something. And actually Pam was there and she knew exactly what was going on, what he was upset about. And I poured his coffee, but he actually wanted hot chocolate. So she actually fixed the situation and had it all organized through admin on how things were getting billed and reassured him. So she was great and very calm with them and it was fantastic.
Oh, nice work, Pam. That's awesome. And I think the situation that you guys would find yourselves in, you're generally with the residents with more pleasant activities than, let's say, the nursing staff, right? So you're providing them what they would like, but trying to figure out if he wanted coffee or hot chocolate, or communicating with, I can tell you, I think I probably know who you're talking about, and reassuring that that's sometimes all it takes, is everything's taken care of, or, you know, is my meal paid for? That can sometimes start to escalate a resident. So we just generally say, yes, it's taken care of, depending on the resident. Sometimes we'll make up a receipt, give it to the resident. Sometimes the residents will have a little bit of fake money if they are not cognitive enough to know that that's Monopoly money and not, a real 10. Like different things like that. And then after, if you've ever had an encounter and afterwards, I'd want to make sure that you are reporting to your registered staff, or even if it's Crystal and you're in the home, or your manager or Rachel, that an incident did occur. Because sometimes it might occur and you've de-escalated it and then nothing, but it's really important that anything you use that worked might work for the staff so that it gets shared. So if you can let Rachel know, she could always let the floor know. Positive minutes should be documented too. Yes, exactly. So the other thing that I wanted to talk about, because sometimes this is hard to respond to, are the hallucinations and delusions and illusions. And I'm not sure if you've ever spoken or had a resident respond with a hallucination, or, where's my mom? I'm looking for my mom. Those kind of behaviors. I think it's really important that we respond sometimes carefully with those. We wouldn't want to tell a resident every day who's looking for their mom that their mom's dead. We don't need to relive that grief process. So responding with, tell me about your mom. What did your mom look like? Trying to redirect the thought process necessarily, and not to invoke any more grief. I actually had a resident last week ask me about my father-in-law, who he knew and how he was. And I was like, oh, he's great. He's gone. I didn't say that, but he's great. And then his wife, who knew, she's like, actually, he's in heaven. I was like, I was trying not to tell him that. But he just responded with, how did he get there? How did he get there? So if you this is just a page, and I think Rachel would be able to share these with you. If a resident does have a hallucination or an illusion or a delusion, is just to stay calm and be matter of fact, showing that you're upset may only increase the person's anxiety. Listen to the person's concerns. Avoid arguing with a resident who, to them in that moment, their hallucination, delusion, illusion is very real to them. So if we try to correct their reality, we can escalate. So I think it's okay to say to a resident that you're familiar with, I don't see that little boy in the corner, but I understand that it's very real to you. So that's a validation of their feelings. We don't want to enter, some hallucinations, because sometimes we'll say it's okay to enter the hallucination, or if they think they're at the university and they're still teaching and they think that some of the residents are just students, that's okay. What we'd want to know is if it was a risk. So we wouldn't want to necessarily enter a hallucination where they're being told to harm others. So we just need to sort of assess that risk. Rachel, can you just, do I have control? I don't have control, do I? Can you just go down to 6? And so giving lots of reassurance. And this says check for environmental triggers. This would be maybe if it's an illusion. So if they heard something on a TV and they're misinterpreting their environment, just trying to figure out where that might have come from. Use distraction if possible. So distracting to your activity. And then recognizing that not all hallucinations are upsetting. So we, as nurses, are like, oh my God, they're hallucinating. We got to get them something to help them out. But if it's not upsetting or disturbing to the person and they don't seem distraught by it, then it's okay. And then, I've just been sort of reiterating, let someone know that they were having a hallucination, or they were talking about something in the past that isn't necessarily factual. And also, if it was something that suddenly occurred and it didn't normally happen when you were with the same resident, you'd want to report that. So if you have a sudden hallucination or sudden delusional thoughts, it could be that there's something medically going on. So we just want to make sure that you would report a sudden change in condition of the resident to nursing staff when you're there. Can you simply smile and not say anything? Yes, sometimes it's enough. I've validated people in the residents oh, are you always like this? Like you get it wrong sometimes. So I think that's also the takeaway of today, is that if you feel nervous sometimes when a resident's starting to escalate or starting to behave, it's okay. Like, so do we. We feel that way sometimes too. So it's a perfectly normal reaction, because you're like, oh God, I don't want to say the wrong thing, or oh, I don't know if they're okay, if they're safe. So a smile right now is a little bit more tricky. You got to smile with your eyes because of the mask. I mean, I'm not going to lie, I've pulled the mask down a couple times to give them that big smile. And hopefully, someday we'll be able to show our smiles again. But imagine being a resident who's cognitively impaired, who doesn't understand that there's a pandemic, and everybody's wearing a mask around them these days, or the last 3 years. I actually think our residents have managed very well in that situation. They've actually shown some really amazing coping skills and understanding that we have this mask on. I think what it's done is it's removed that hominess feeling for our long-term care homes. And they probably just think they're in a hospital all the time. And some residents will say, take that darn thing off. Take that off. I'm like, yeah, okay. I don't want to get fired today.
Speaking of saying the wrong thing, we'll try like different interventions, different white lies or little tall tales to redirect a resident, and you'll definitely get it wrong 90% of the time, 80% of the time. So it'll be like, where's my wife? Oh, she's just at work. And he's like, she never works. So it's really trial and error. The benefit of dementia is that you can try again. You could try something and see if it works, if it's validating. Sometimes you might even be the trigger yourself. And then that's when you would maybe go get a staff member, go get another volunteer. It's, yeah, like Holly said, a lot of trial and error. Yeah.
And I think, like, if I can also say, is just remember that it's the disease acting or speaking or behaving. A resident isn't doing something to you or on purpose, generally. I mean, 99% of the time. There's the odd time where you kind of question. But this is strictly the dementia, like the demented residents. And imagine that poor little journey that they're on and how scared their days are some days. So if you can just remember that disease is speaking when they say to you, you're getting fat, or are you pregnant? Like, yeah, I don't think you would have asked me that. And you're, no. So
I can hear the Eileen and Joan little laugh in the background. Do you guys have any questions?
First of all, can volunteers be fired?
But that's not nothing before.
Can
No,
volunteers be fired?
no, never.
Well, it was mentioned about volunteers.
That's too funny. Hi, Lynette.
Hi, I have a couple of questions.
Yeah.
One was around, when there's a responsive behavior that occurs and the need to report that to somebody. Sometimes I'm really challenged to know who I should be talking to. Often when I'm volunteering, there isn't another program staff around, and it's hard to tell who's who because absolutely everybody in scrubs looks the same. So, sometimes what I've done is kind of wait until I see who's handing out medication, and then I think, okay, maybe that's the nurse that's in charge. But it's hard to tell. So I'm just wondering how to navigate that. Everybody looks the same. I can't tell a PSW from a nurse from an HSW, HSA from a whatever, or an agency staff. Sometimes it's agency staff and they just go like this.
Yeah, it is tricky as a volunteer. You're kind of coming and going, you're meeting new staff. You may not know half the faces that are in the building. The beauty of the county homes is we do have those TV screens now. Hopefully they're up to date, but sometimes they're not. It has the faces of the staff and their names and their positions. Usually it's by the nurses station. You can take a look on those. But I think you're right. You're nailing it on the head with the med cart, the med pass. That's the nurse, whether they're agency or not, they need to document anything that you're bringing forward to them. So that would be your go-to. And I know it's tricky, like dietary PS. We're all wearing the scrubs, right? So we all look alike. But I think, yeah, if you're finding it
And is
hard
that,
to,
yeah, thanks. And I guess sort of to build on that question, is that the most appropriate person to go to? So there's been a couple of times when there's been a very mild responsive behavior, and often it's related to toileting. Somebody either needs to go to the bathroom, thinks they need to go to the bathroom, or has in their diaper, and they're agitated because they're not comfortable. So, sometimes I'll reach out to the closest body in scrubs and say, hey, so-and-so, I think they need a change. And sometimes the response is they might be on a one-on-one, so they're with somebody, and then they're like, oh, somebody will come and do that. So I'm never quite sure who to go to. Would it be the person who's handing out the meds, or where would I take that to at the time?
the nurse is always the supervisor on duty, so that would be your go-to no
Okay.
matter what. If you have an issue, yeah, if you're having difficulty with a scenario, your nurse is always your go-to. But the PSWs do provide the care, right? So if you know the resident needs to go to the bathroom, or they're telling you they need to go to the bathroom, that would be the nurse, or sorry, the PSW. But if you can't find them, the nurse, because then they can find a PSW for you for sure.
Okay, thanks. That's really helpful. It's sometimes you kind of feel like Alice in Wonderland, and it's a very,
especially for you, because you come in the evening a lot of the time, and
yeah,
it's a whole different story in the evening for sure.
yeah. And then I guess another question that I had was around just what the opportunities are for, some innovation. And not to kind of draw comparisons, but in my dad's home, where I was really closely engaged with the BSO because my dad had extreme responsive behaviors. So I feel like I've been on the front lines there. But I was very, very engaged with the BSO, and they were doing some interesting things in the secure wards. So they introduced some elements of the butterfly program, things that didn't cost a lot. They didn't subscribe to the $100,000 certification. They just did what they could on their own. They repainted, they put up some murals that were reflective of the local community that most of these particular residents would have lived in. And then they implemented some different types of care techniques. Like they noticed that residents were being put to bed really early. So they implemented a new rule, no resident to bed before 7:30. They brought in nighttime snacks of choice. So if a resident, likes Chex cereal before they go to bed, they brought in Chex cereal, that type of thing. And I just wondered what the opportunity is to work with, and I don't know if the BSO is the appropriate mechanism to try and affect those types of changes here, or some other unit in the Simcoe County framework. But is there opportunity to kind of bring in those types of innovation now that I know COVID's still a concern, but it feels like there's more opportunity to do more now?
Great question. Yeah, go ahead, Holly, because so Lynette's actually from Georgia Manor as well, so you can maybe touch base on the new behavioral unit there, Holly, if you know a little bit about that concept.
I don't really know. The behavior support unit is not a butterfly effect unit. So there's a unit on Georgia Manor that we can access beds for residents who were really struggling with managing in long-term care. So that wouldn't be the appropriate spot for that.
I agree. Yeah.
And I've certainly seen like Spencer House. I'll talk to my 4 homes. Spencer House has put some sort of overlay on everybody's door, and everybody's door is different.
Yeah. They did that at my dad's too.
And so things like that, I think we're starting to see a little bit. Certainly some of it does require funding, and so that's all depending on the money. No resident should be put to bed before 7:30. Really, that shouldn't be happening anywhere. So that is not necessarily the butterfly effect, but should be. I know that it happens because staff shortage and time, and sometimes the residents are tired. So if it's care planned for a resident to go to bed on earlier, and it's preferred for the resident, but really honestly it's bad practice because it's a long night in bed.
Thank you. That's reassuring to hear, because often, in times of stress, you see sort of the easy ones put to bed earlier. So the ones that require more care, there's more time to get that done. So I'll just share that.
Yeah, I know. I've been in long-term care for 25 years. I've seen PSWs put Like, and not through any fault of their own, but
No.
because there's a time constraint and we need to get people, there's not enough
Yeah.
resources. They'll put pajamas on and then put the clothes over top. So they come to the dining room and you're like, I see the jammies underneath this. Like, that's
Lynette
creative.
is preaching to the choir here. Hey? So the BSL is an external service, right? So we're in a home trying to make all the changes, but it's a bigger system issue, right? So
Right.
the Holly and myself from my previous position, we sympathize. Amen, sister.
So
It's
just-
there's
but
obviously we
you-
see
what
a
you need to
lot.
Is that, like, in our
Yeah.
region, the North Simcoe Muskoka region, it's the Seniors Geriatric Service, and they are very forward thinking and they're advocating hard for change. And we tell them all the time, the homes are short. We need this, we need this, we need this. And it really comes down to right now, we're just lucky if we're full staffed.
Yeah, I totally understand that. Yeah.
But
totally get
certain
that.
things, like, I don't know if you've ever looked up the Dementia Village in the
Mm-hmm.
Netherlands, and the home in France,
Yeah.
and just
The greenhouse project.
the greenhouse project. Like, it's just all such amazing.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be lovely? Like, it's like the rainbows and unicorn stuff that I really wish we'll see someday.
Yeah. Yeah, because it shouldn't be rainbows and unicorns, right? It should be practice.
Normal.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
So if I could just ask a quick question, it might help everyone else too. Holly, you mentioned your 4 homes. So is Georgian Manor not one of those homes? Okay.
No, but there's me, but her name's Victoria.
Okay.
And she supports she supports the, what do we call it? Midland Penetang area, I guess. or the
Okay.
area. And then we have, like, somewhere in Collingwood. So there's 6 regions within the North Simcoe Muskoka. So I just.
Right.
Victoria's office is on 2, I think, Lynette.
Okay.
In the back hallway. You can knock on their door whenever you want. I'm sure they'd love to chat with you.
Yeah, thanks, Rachel.
Yeah, and I love that you come in the evening, because we do see our residents start to escalate after, the afternoon. And I've been to different conferences that say sundowning isn't a thing. That's BS, but it's not. Have you
It's
been in a
not,
home
yeah.
after 3:00? We see sundowning. So it's nice that you're going to be an extra body, or that you're an extra body when you're there. And
Yeah,
your best
I haven't been in for a few weeks, but I'm planning to retire soon, so I hope to be able to come in a lot more.
Oh, that's so great. I have 5 more minutes. Does anybody have anything else that they'd like to ask?
Holly has to scoot to a concert, a kid's concert.
Mm.
It's so fun.
Yeah, at 2:00 in the afternoon. Like, who does that?
I have excuse me, 3 videos as well, guys. I maybe just do 2. I won't overwhelm you today. That are part of our new orientation process, and that's kind of the remainder of our time when Holly has to scoot off. So yeah, sensory gardens.
Absolutely. I love
Yes.
gardening. I wish that people grew more of their own food in the homes, and they got to, we see the odd tomato plant on a patio, but sensory gardens, when we think of other sensory things like tactile, we provide residents, they call them fuzzy blankets or fiddle muffs, or there's just so many different. And sometimes we have residents that touch when they're around, they're just touching everything, and helping to prevent them from touching everything are different, these. So they're like a blanket, and they've got tags on them, and they've got Velcro on them, and it's, so yeah, absolutely. Anything else?
How you doing, Joan and Eileen?
Good so far.
Excellent.
Pam, I have like a brother of your dog. He just left, but do you have a Jack Russell? I saw a Jack Russell on your lap. Yeah, I also have a Jack Russell. He just was behind me.
Marilyn, are you meaning more of like a sensory room, or just like quiet, dark, chill room? At Sunset, there's a few, I think, on the units.
So Lynette,
No,
I
Lynette,
just
we're
see
gonna
that-
watch Tipa.
Oh,
You
I
beat
was
me
just
to it.
So there is education if you look on that North Simcoe Muskoka website, and I am sure that you'd be welcome at any of it. And there's education by the PRCs on
I'll
TIPA
send that
school.
out, yeah.
Yeah, the PAC, we call it PAC. I don't even know what PAC stands for. Oh, I'm having again a more
Positive approach care,
thank you.
something
Yes,
like that.
that's
Yeah.
it. Positive approach to care.
Lynette's hired.
Don't tell them, don't tell any of my bosses that I forgot what PAC stands for. But the PRCs provide that. So they took some special extra training and they talk
Right.
about the gems and stuff. So that might be another good person to have come if you're looking, Rachel, to have people. They're way smarter than I am.
Yeah, way smarter. Marilyn, I think there's on most of the units, I think there's one quiet room without a TV. Excuse me, residents can use that definitely to just chill, especially if they're in like a shared suite. It sometimes isn't quiet, right? And you can't redirect them to their room. But there should definitely be quiet, chill rooms accessible on each unit, absolutely. Okay, anything else for Holly?
Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for your volunteerism as well.
Right?
Yeah, that's awesome.
Best crew.
Thanks for organizing this.
So to go, do I just hit the red hang up button and I'll
Just
leave you?
leave.
Okay,
Thanks,
bye.
Holly. Bye.
Bye.
Okay. So yeah, Lynette beat me to it. I have 2 Tipa Snow videos. She's what we call a dementia guru. I was fortunate enough to go to one of her seminars, and she has all the techniques for everything. It's amazing. So I thought I would share with you guys 2 videos. Oh, I gotta make sure I do the audio thing. Okay. You guys see and hear okay? Sorry. Yeah.
Challenging behaviors. That's how we see it. They're misbehaving. They have problem behaviors. We've got to do something about this. Now, I'm going to call a timeout right now because the biggest problem we have right here is you've already identified the source of the behavior. You're pretty sure it's them and what they're doing. Timeout. You need to take a step back and realize this is much more complicated than you think. And instead of being such a strong judge and jumping to conclusions, what I want you to do is back off and reframe this. I want you to realize that they're doing the very best they can to try to communicate with you, to meet a need, to express that they aren't liking what you're doing. And unfortunately, you simply see it as not getting your way. What you don't realize is that you started this very frequently in your effort to be helpful. Let me just say to you, you weren't as helpful as you thought you were. I didn't really enjoy the help you gave me. I didn't get it. So you have a choice right now. Are you going to continue to push your agenda to try to get where you want? Or can you take that step back and go, okay, well, this isn't working. Let me rethink. So what you want to do when you experience a behavior you're not liking, you need to, whoa, take that step back. Take a deep breath, let it go, and realize now it's time to kick in the front of your brain and to become a really good detective. Try to figure out what might be driving what you're seeing, what you're hearing, what you're feeling, and what they're feeling. What maybe you're smelling and they're not picking up on, what they're tasting versus what you would be tasting. Because what you want to do is realize that you need to see it from their side. And once you see it from their side, you try to be in their shoes, figure this out. Suddenly, when you see things, hear things, experience things differently, and you make that choice, that decision to do that, oh, oh, the uh-oh becomes an aha, because you can start to realize it's the setting, it's the care, it's the gem. It's who they were before this all started. There's lots of pieces to the puzzle. Your job, if you want to do this well and do this over the course of this condition, is to stop the judgment, time yourself out, and reframe this behavior. Go from a challenging and frustrating, I just don't understand why she's doing this, to pausing for yourself, getting some help, maybe getting somebody else to take a look with you, because maybe you just can't see it because of who you are and how it works. But what you're going to do is take that step back, look more broadly, and at that point, make a decision. What are they trying to do? Are they communicating unmet physical need? There's basically 5 of them you want to learn about. Or an unmet emotional need. Or are you seeing the emotional need, but you're missing the physical need? Or was it something that is happening in the environment or happened earlier today? As I said, complicated. So you need some training. You need to know what's going on and what's not going on so you can quit sitting in judgment and start using this. That's the best tool. That and your ability to bring people together to help you. So with challenging behaviors, it's not about them. It's about us and what we choose to do about this effort to communicate an unmet need and helping us figure out what is the need and how can we better meet it for success for both of us. Making a positive difference because we choose positive approach to the care. Now remember this lady? What do you think she's doing? You see her beating on the chairs, making noise, annoying people, and you know she needs to go to the bathroom. It's been a long time. You've tried to make her stop, but she won't. What if I told you she used to clean houses for a living? I'm going to try substitution and a positive approach rather than trying to make her quit.
Miss Leona. Well, hey there.
Get your hand.
Get my hand out the way. You're trying to get them clean. Here, try this.
She's a busy woman.
There you go.
I'm going to
that.
try a substitution here.
I'll trade you.
Not yet. Show her.
Rub it with that. Can you rub it?
Yeah.
Here, rub
We're
it.
getting there.
Trade me.
Wait.
Trade me. Here you go. Take this.
All right, get it.
You got it. Now trade out. There you go.
Ta-da.
Now rub it.
Now I show her, and there she goes.
There we go.
People
Good.
are less annoyed, not so much noise. And she's
Beautiful.
cleaning. Now I want to reinforce it. That's
Got
good. That's good.
2 more to go.
But I still haven't met
You're doing a fantastic job.
her unmet need. One more substitution.
Nicely done, Leona.
She needs to get finished with this
Boy, you are good.
so we can move on.
You get this one?
Watch me, I'm sneaky.
That's it. Good. Good.
I visually eliminate the task.
Whoa. Woo. That is beautiful. You did a fantastic job. Man, you're a good cleaner.
Here.
Thank you. All right, well, come with me and we'll sit down and take a break.
Oh, good.
I know you're ready for
I'm
one, aren't you?
tired.
Now, before she goes to sit down, though, we have a place to go.
Oh, girl, you worked hard.
Oh, good.
You are one of the hardest working women I've ever met.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Well, Lord knows. Let's go to the ladies before we sit down, though.
Okay.
Okay.
We changed the challenge to success.
You made that look easy, eh? Now, do you guys have any other suggestions on maybe how else she could have gone about that? Did you think of it turning out a different way? What do you think? Have you seen something similar? I think she met the emotional need, which was having to clean. I have to keep busy. I got to do it. And then had to meet the physical need of needing to go to the bathroom, right? Okay. One more video.
please, please, get that little boy, that one right there, get that little boy, look at him. I'm worried about him, help him, he needs help.
Okay.
That one, get it. Now, you can tell by her face. Did you see it? What did her face say? What the hell are you talking about? And her whole body's going, okay. And what is she telling me? Diss me. So what she wants to do is, which is my dominant side. On my body, it's the right. You want to approach from the person's dominant side because, do this, you'll draw their gaze to that side. Human beings like people on their preferred side. They pay more attention to data on their preferred side. They like auditory data coming in on their preferred side. They prefer to be touched on their preferred side. So what I'm doing is setting it up so that if she comes to that side, what will I pay less attention to? The thing that was over here, which I was really focused on. And so she's going to start off far enough away so that she goes, Teepa, hey. And if I see her and call her in, she wants to come in and get connected to me. Hey, come here. I need you to get, yeah.
Hi.
Hey, listen.
How are you?
Well, I'm not good. That
Okay.
little boy, I'm worried about
Little
him.
boy, you're worried about?
Yeah, he's up under there. You see how he's gotten up under there, and I'm afraid he's going to get hurt. Can you get him out of there? You want me to get him out of there?
You want me to get him out of there?
Yeah, somebody needs to get him out.
Somebody needs to get him out?
Somebody does.
Somebody does need to get him out.
Now those are the same exact words. What was different?
Does.
What was she taking control of? The situation. And so what you want to do is let me know, do I have to be in charge of it anymore? No, you're going to take care of it. You're absolutely right. That little boy should be getting out from under that. That's not okay. Yeah, kids shouldn't be up under there, should they? I bet you were always real good with your kids. I bet you didn't have, oh yeah, no, they'd get into weird places. My son once crawled up in somewhere, and you know what? We had to break, he got his head stuck in a rubber tire.
Oh my.
Well, not his head, but the other part of him. I can't think of what it is. This thing here where he gets that. He got in there and we couldn't get out, and we tried lard. My grandma said try lard. We tried lard. Now what happened to talking about or worrying about that?
Nothing, it's gone.
Well, it is for right now. Guess what though? If it's Louie body, it'll be back. It'll be back. They're repetitive more in the evening and at night, and distress.
Good, right? Oh, she has so many more videos. We could be on here for hours. The only thing I would say about when she was talking about preferred side, if you're right dominant, you'll try to approach on the right. What would be the exemption, you think? If maybe their right eye is bad, maybe they had a stroke and it's their right side that's affected. So you're actually going to go on the other side, but you'll obviously get to know the residents that way. If they have a better eye than the other, if they have macular degeneration, then you always have to approach from the front instead of the side. But when in doubt, just ask the staff, right? They see them day in, day out through care. They would know which side's dominant because they have to get them up on that side, do care on that side. And I think she was whispering to the staff what to say, right? Validate, validate, validate. At the end of the day, if you don't know what to say or what redirection would work, just validate them. Well, that must have been scary, huh? Or I understand that might worry you, something like that. Because any relationship, we just want to be validated, right? I don't care if you're really listening to me or not, just validate me that I'm happy. They feel the same way, right? Yeah, that's kind of all we have for today. Do you guys have any more questions?
I presume her voice was loud just because she's in the video. Okay,
Yeah.
because you wouldn't really talk like that to a resident.
That's yeah. She's very outgoing, outspoken. Even during her seminar, she's very loud, and yeah, you're right. You wouldn't go head on with a resident like that, gentle. Yeah, we're standing right next to you. You don't have to yell at me.
Right.
and
She's
and
American.
Yeah, she's
And her
Touche.
residents may be more
Touche.
accustomed to that tone.
Yeah. And I have to remember that sometimes too, because I think I'm a quiet talker. My pitch is a little bit lower, and sometimes I go overboard to a resident. Or like, you don't have to yell at me. I'm right here. I'm like, okay, yes, they'll tell you, right? When in doubt, they'll be honest with you. Yeah. Thank you. So this is the most we've had during an education session. I'm so happy you guys came. We're gonna keep going with these. You guys enjoy the live ones as we go. I'm thinking maybe for next year we could do like every other month, instead of just like a flyer every month. I know that's boring, and I love to see your faces. So I'll definitely try to keep this up. So with the email I'll send out with the recording, I'll remember to send Holly's information and her website that she mentioned. And I'll send the pages that she had as well. And if you'd like, I can send those YouTube videos as well. Yeah, thank you so much for joining today, guys. And I guess I'll see you in the new year. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you, guys. Have a good day. Ciao for now.
Thank you. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Same to you.